Hi guys! I have been waiting so impatiently to film this video for the past few weeks. I've been so excited to get started on this project. So I am starting a new project for me. It was inspired by other YouTubers who do this project. Shout out to It's Just Stuff and Emily and Max, who have both been doing this project for a while, and I think this is such an amazing idea for getting use out of your entire collection. Spreading your uses across your whole collection rather than hyper-focusing on one thing, trying to hit pan or use that thing up, even though I do love doing that as well. With eyeshadow, something that I have a really large collection of, I don't think it really makes sense to focus on one eyeshadow at a time when I could make it a goal to use every pan of eyeshadow that I own over the course of a year. So that is exactly what I am attempting to do in 2025, and I'm so excited. I'm gonna link both Emily and Max and It's Just Steph, as well as any other No Pan Left Behind YouTubers that I can find. So let me start by sharing exactly how I'm going to do this project, as well as my reason behind doing it, the goals, the things I want to get out of it. What I plan to do is have 5 palettes in my project at a time. 4 of those being pre-made regular palettes, and then 1 of those being a magnetic palette with singles in it. So to kick off the project in this video, I'm going to use a random number generator to pick 4 palettes from my collection. They can be any palette, whether it's a palette that's Christmassy or colorful and pastel. And then I'm also going to fill my small AOA Pro magnetic palette that looks like this, it's filled with other shadows right now, with a random selection of magnetic singles from my collection. Essentially, I'm going to keep generating them until this palette is full. The goal is to use every shade at least once. Once I have completed a palette, meaning I've used every shade in that palette at least one time, I am finished with it. I can roll it out and roll something new in its place. So my hope is I am able to complete, meaning I can no pan left behind, every palette in my collection over the course of 2025. I think I should be able to get to every single one if I pick 4 a month for 12 months. Once a palette is completed in the No Pan Left Behind challenge, I am then going to decide whether I want to keep or declutter that palette. This is, I think, going to be a more intentional way of decluttering palettes, because truthfully, it's really difficult for me to just lay my palettes out and decide which ones to keep and declutter. It's really hard for me to get rid of things because some things I may not have even used in the last 8 months. So how could I know whether I want to keep it? So this will allow me to just declutter as I go. And by the end of the year, I will have used every shade in every palette, and I will know really, really well which palettes suit me the best, which palettes have half the shades where I don't even touch them. So I'm really excited to see how this goes. I think this is my kind of project pan. It's not so much about using one thing up in its entirety. It's about spreading the love and making sure you're using everything you own in a year. And even though my goal is just to dip into every pan in my collection at least once this year, I am hoping that in doing this project, I will start to just naturally see some new pans in my palettes without even necessarily trying, just because I am trying to use my palettes in as many ways as I can, and I'm sure I have some older palettes where I'm close to hitting pan on a lot of the shades. Another thing I've decided is every time I bring in a new palette, whether I purchase it or I get it in PR, throughout this year, it is automatically going to go into my No Pan Left Behind challenge. This will serve 2 purposes. 1, it will ensure that I'm also paying attention to my new things, because that's sometimes, I think, the danger of certain project pans is you try to focus so much of your attention on your old products that you never let yourself enjoy the new stuff. So this will allow me to pay just as much attention to new products, and it will also allow me to really get to know a palette when I first bring it into my collection, so I can decide, is this something that needs to stay permanently in my collection? I think this is also going to really help me with palettes I got in PR in 2024 that I feel like I barely even got to try. There are some that I've only used once or twice. I have no idea how I feel about them. Those will naturally be included in this No Pan Left Behind project throughout the year, and it'll really kind of force me to get to know those palettes, decide if I want to keep them. I just think this will be so helpful all around, not only for revisiting older palettes, but also trying out new things and making sure I get a thorough feel for a new palette when I first get it, because I think that's just as important as using the older stuff. So I'm really looking forward to this project, and what I hope to get out of it is to really feel like I know all of my palettes well by the end of this year, because I don't feel that way now. The other thing I think this project will help me with is to find out what kinds of shades I like and don't like. I'll be able to see which types of shades I tend to dread using in a palette, or which types of shades I end up using the most. I am planning on tracking my usage of every shade. And of course, the number one benefit is going to be the satisfaction of knowing that I used every eyeshadow in my collection over the course of a year, because I do not think the same could be said for any previous year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and select my 4 palettes and my magnetic singles that I'm going to be no pan left behinding. I think having a cat in my lap must be a symbol of good luck as we select my 4 palettes that I'm going to be starting out this project with. So I am using an app called Tiny Decisions. You can type in a list of whatever you want it to choose from. So let's find out what palettes we're going to be working with. Ooh, okay, the first one we got is the Nomad New Zealand Stargazing palette. So here's this one. I actually think this is a beautiful palette for this time of year, for the winter. It has some really nice frosty shades, some cool toned colors, and there are some warm tones mixed in. So I think this is going to be a ton of fun. Let's find out the next palette. Oh, wow. Okay, great picks so far. This time we got the Unleasha Glitterpedia #1. This was already in my palette basket for my current Shop My Stash rotation. So I'm really excited to continue using this because in my opinion, this is a perfectly wintry palette. It is all shimmer and it's mostly toppers, glittery, sparkly, beautiful toppers. And it couldn't be more perfect for this time of year. So far, wow. I've gotten really lucky. Let's see what else we get. I got the Kaleidos Escape Pod. Okay, that one is probably going to be a challenge. This is a very colorful palette. And a great example of a newer to me palette I received in PR that I feel like I have barely touched. I don't have a strong opinion on this palette because I think I've only used it once or twice. As you can see, this is a very colorful palette, very squeaky as well. I really like this color story. I guess I just look at this as more of a spring and summer color story, but that's part of why I wanted to do this challenge, because sometimes I think I really limit myself in terms of what palettes I reach for at certain times of year. There are some palettes I reserve for only certain times of year. Even though I love coordinating my makeup looks with the season that we're in, I think sometimes I would probably be surprised by how well a spring and summer palette does work in the winter, and how many of the shades in there probably would be fun and wintry. I definitely think I'll probably end up using a lot of these like lighter frosty shades more often. This blue, I think cool toned blues are really fun in the winter. So there are definitely a lot of wintry color possibilities in here. And there's also a handful of neutral shades that I can lean on if I don't want to go super bold. I think that'll be fun. That'll be a challenge for sure. So we have one more pre-made palette to choose. I'm so excited. Ooh, okay, we got the Nomad Chicago Speakeasy palette. Another Nomad palette. I think this is one of those color stories that works any time of year, kind of has shades for any season. There are definitely quite a few shades in here that I've never used, so this will be a good way to finally really get into this palette. I did decide to remove myself from Nomad's PR list this year. They did asked me whether I wanted to opt in for the full year, and I decided that I think I would rather just buy the Nomad launches in 2025 that really catch my eye the most, rather than getting every single one in PR, because I've really fallen in love with Nomad over the last few years, but I also feel like sometimes I am really tempted to keep a palette that I've gotten from them in PR, even if I know that it's not really a color story that's for me, just because it's Nomad and I love their formula, so it's tempting to just keep everything from them. But I think this year I really want to be a lot more intentional about the palettes I bring in, and I would much rather support Nomad as a consumer and just buy the palettes of theirs that really interest me the most. So anyway, kind of a tangent, but it is related to this palette and the fact that I did get this in PR and I feel like I've hardly used it because honestly it is kind of a different color story for me. So I do hope to figure out through this No Pan Left Behind challenge whether or not I really want to keep this in my collection or not. And I actually did just buy a brand new palette So this one by default is going to go into the No Pan Left Behind as well. It's the NYX Ultimate Vintage Jean Baby Palette. I am putting together a full face of NYX video. I'm so excited because I really feel like NYX has stepped it up so much in recent years. I have never tried a NYX eyeshadow, I don't think, unless you count like their jumbo pencil. I haven't tried like a palette from them. So I'm really curious about this one. They have a few different colors of this layout of palette, and I decided to go with this one because it had a really fun mix of neutrals and cool blues and silvers, and I've been more into cool toned eyeshadow lately, so this will also be in the project. So those are the pre-made palettes that I'm going to try and complete, hopefully in the next month. I have no idea how long it's going to take me to go through palettes, so this first month will kind of serve as a good test run, I guess. So now it is time to fill up my little magnetic palette. I already have the single shadow from ColourPop in the shade La Playa in here because this one is part of my Finish 7 by Spring project pan. So I'm going to randomly generate shades until this palette is full. This time around, I'm only going to be selecting from what is in this large Cliona palette because these two shades need to be repressed, these two clarity shades, and then the ones in here, I think I'm going to be putting in my Lethal Custom 12 pan, and I haven't decided which ones those are yet, so those will be added to my Magnetic Singles collection once I do figure it out, the extras of my Lethal shades, but the Custom 12 pan will be included in this project as a regular palette. So that is why I am only going to be selecting from these shades, and there are 51 shades in here. Instead of plugging every single shade name into Tiny Decisions, I feel like that would take hours, so instead I am going to just use a random number generator, and I will be counting the rows horizontally. And I'm using an app called Pretty Random, and this is just a random number generator. I've put in 1 as the minimum and 51 as the maximum. Okay, I got number 20. That will be interesting. This is a plum, a nice matte plum color. This is the shade Cabana from the BH Summer in Saint Tropez palette. Let's choose another. 5. Nice. Okay, that is a nice light pink shimmer. An all-around useful shade, very easy to incorporate, so I think that this one will be very quick. I will swatch all of these magnetic shades together once I've finished selecting them. Then we got shade number 18. Ooh, okay, that's a fun one. I was talking about really being into cool tones, and this is a nice cool baby pinky lilac. It's the shade 90210 from the BH Lost in Los Angeles palette. We're going to group all the BH Cosmetics shades together since they fit nicely. Let's see what else we get. 8. That is a light matte peachy pink. It's the shade Villa from the BH Summer in Saint Tropez. 27. This is one of my favorite shades from the Saint Tropez palette. It's the shade Coastline, a duochrome taupe to mint green. Very pretty. I think that will go really nicely with ColourPop La Playa right there. Those two together, ooh, yeah. Let's pick a few more. So far I'm like, am I gonna be overwhelmed with all these? Maybe. We'll find out. Then we got shade 14, 16, 15, 14. Oh, okay, a hot pink. I guess I have to use this hot pink at some point this year, so I guess might as well be like the approaching Valentine's Day time. But this is a really bright hot pink. So far these shades don't go that well together, but maybe they don't have to, you know, maybe I can just use one shade along with another palette. Okay, I think I have room for about 2 more depending on what I get. I got shade 9. Okay, another pink, and it's also from BH Cosmetics. Slightly lighter than that previous hot pink shade. Okay, and I should have room for 1 more, unless I get something too big. Let's see. 32. Sorry I haven't been showing this palette. I feel like it looks kind of funny now. I've just been keeping all the shades in the same place that they've been, and just leaving the gaps so that I can count the same way. But 32 is this peach all the way over here from BH Cosmetics. This is the shade Malibu from the Lost in LA palette. A light peach shimmer. I really like this shade. So I got a very odd mix, but I think I might be able to arrange these in a way that makes a little more sense. Okay, so here's how I ended up arranging those shades. I kind of grouped them in vertical color groupings. So this first one is those 2 mint greens, and then I kind of threw that peachy matte in with it because I didn't really nowhere else to put it. Then in the middle, I have those two pinks and the peach shimmer. And then on this side, I have the kind of purpley plummy tones. So that is interesting. Let me swatch. Okay, so here is my randomly generated magnetic palette that I'm also hoping to complete. So my hope is that in a month I can come back with all of these palettes completed in the No Pan Left Behind challenge. Right now I feel like I have no idea what to expect, how long it'll take me to complete a palette, whether or not this is way too many palettes to have in the project at a time. I will find out as we go. In my updates, I will share looks that I created with all of these palettes, how many times I used each shade, and lots more fun information. So definitely stay tuned and subscribe so you don't miss the next update, as well as all the content that will be going up before then. I have so many videos that I'm so excited to film, so stay tuned. Definitely make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss my update that will come in February. Of course, I have lots of content going up before then, so I would love to have you stick around and watch other videos if you're new to my channel. If you're hungry for more content, I will link some videos on the end screen for you to check out next. But thank you so much for watching today's video. Huge shout out to all of my patrons and channel members for supporting my channel. I really appreciate you guys, and I hope everyone has an amazing rest of their day, and I will talk to you very soon in my next video.